Fire management is not a physical problem in terms of the risk is actually to people and to society and assets. Yes, it's got physical elements in terms of fire behaviour and fuel and buildings, but in reality to solve any problems or to reduce risk, it's actually where social science and the physical and natural sciences intersect.
We're in a rapidly developing field of examining, in the aftermath of major disasters, the environmental factors that contributed to destruction. It's often assumed that things like people's aesthetic preferences, their attitudes to the value of bushland as habitat and ecological values, etc., are somehow fundamentally at odds and lead them to exist in a high-risk state. That those values that underpin amenity are somehow preventing people from taking action. In fact, what we found was that people prefer bushland around their property in a condition which is relatively low fuel, which is quite open, and which actually corresponds or translates into also preferred states for recreation and aesthetics. So fundamentally, there's not evidence of a really strong conflict between the state of fuel, which is what we call typically fuel hazard, which is a key element of the risk, and their preferred condition of the vegetation in terms of their amenity.
It should actually give us better, more tailored outcomes if we can work either with supporting community values or directly with the community in trying to design bushfire management measures that are both more acceptable to the community and also protect the values that they actually value, rather than what we think they value. So it should give us better outcomes in the longer run, even though it may be more complicated getting there.
Basically all the houses are gone. It's just terrible. And then the 2 primary schools have gone in town. As I said, the restaurant, the hardware store, 2 restaurants. And yeah.
One of the things that we do, especially because we live in largely urban environments, is we reinforce that divide between nature and culture, and we think about controlling or commanding nature to give us some way of inhabiting the spaces that are important to us. Because our interest in this research group is in landscape, we were interested in thinking about how that social and ecological world came together for people, because it seems like in the government end, they're aware that there's this social aspect to living in the landscape. That's the conundrum, but the mitigation that they enact is usually all around managing the ecology or managing the nature part of it. And we wanted to bring that nature, color, and culture bit together and thought about how to develop a method that actually physically did that during the interview process. So what we got them to describe is what they did in a week in that landscape. So, where do you go? How do you do it? Why do you do it? Where do you go for a walk? What do you do? How do you look after those cows? What did you do? How do the kids go to school? And then introduce the element of risk into that. So, how does this work when there's a fire? Or what do you think about this in relation to fire? So in that way, they established how they live in the landscape first, and they vocalized it, which is something people don't do all the time. Once they have their regional map on the thing, they're talking about it in as a landscape, that they understand that they're not living in isolation. And that's something really interesting, because most messages are just targeted at the householder.
Fire suppression is possibly close to its limits. We don't have a lot more resource to throw at it. Technology will make small improvements, but some of those landscapes, there will be fires in the future. We can't stop them. As we engage with the community on different issues, here's some tools that will help facilitate better conversations, and largely that's what's happening. Is we need to have stronger conversations with the community to find the win-wins.